Welcome to the Books of the Month show. I am yours truly, Dr. Marilyn Todman. We have an informative show lined up for you today. I have with me a special guest remotely, Sami El-Soudani, and he has published three amazing books. In the beginning, Hijacking of the Religion of God, Volume 1, Judaism, Volume 2, Christianity, and Volume 3, Islam. We're going to talk a little bit about the books, but the most important thing is that we definitely want you to pick up a copy of all three volumes of this book and add it to your library for extensive information that is going to be a revelation and blessing to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Say, is it okay if I call you Sammy?
Yes, by all
Okay,
means.
Sammy. With your three books, this has been a lot of work for you. How long did it take for you to finish your books?
It took me 20 years of reviewing the history of religion, and
Mm-hmm.
that is really reviewing also very in detail from cover to cover 75 books
Mm-hmm.
published on the subject of religion and development in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
Yes. So I noticed that you have Judaism, religion, Christianity, and then you have Islam. So where are you right now as far as in your faith?
I am a Muslim by upbringing, by my early days of upbringing, but the fact is, what that is resonating throughout my book is that there is only one God, and there has to be one book and one people. We really were, that was the original intent of God, to keep the whole world
Mm-hmm.
enlightened by one type of set of instructions. But
Mm-hmm.
as it is, humans snatch and grab away any directions or instructions from God and hijack them to serve their own human purposes. And the whole thing, the entire history of 3,000 years is a broken record of
Mm-hmm.
hijacking of religion to serve the purposes of the hijackers.
Okay. So are you of Christian faith? Where are you now?
I am I'm a Muslim by upbringing, as I said, and even now I am still a Muslim. But as I say,
Mm-hmm.
there's only one. There's really always meant to be one religion.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to call it Islam, Judaism, Christianity. It is the religion of
Mm-hmm.
God,
Okay.
and the Jews, Christians, and Muslims are in the Quran in my book here
Mm-hmm.
are called the people of the book, and it's not the books, it's the
Mm-hmm.
book.
The book.
God
Okay.
intended always to have just one set of instructions, one
Mm-hmm.
book, one God, one book, one people.
Yes.
And
Yes.
this is the message that resonates in my book. And as I said again, when we say in the beginning, hijacking of the religion of God, the beginning, people may forget the fact that with their message in my books is every day break. With every day break, there is a new beginning with God. That's what I'm trying to convey to
Mm-hmm.
the world.
Okay.
We really should go back to the beginning and understand that we really have to be with God and forget about all this between Jews, Christians, and Muslims, and everybody snatching his own religion, saying my religion is the
Mm-hmm.
right one, my religion.
Mm-hmm.
All that really has to go. Eventually, we should really, if we have one God, we should be one people, and we should be.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is so true here. So let's talk about volume one. What is this all about hijacking?
Uh, in volume one, I documented two hijackings of Judaism. The first hijacking of Judaism occurred during the period 1200 BC, which is the year Moses was sent, to 586 BC. And during that period, Jews were practicing pagan worship of the golden calf, the Baal of Tyre,
Mm-hmm.
etc. Besides also worshiping, surprisingly, worshiping the God of Moses, which is called Yahweh in Judaism. This was followed much later by contemporary hijacking of Judaism by Zionists wearing a false mask of uh, religious Zionism, they call it.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole aim here is to control the state of Israel. Now, that takes me to volume two, which is the hijacking of Christianity, which came later. God
Mm-hmm.
sent Jesus to correct the course, bring people back on course. And what happened is that instead of correcting their course, Saint Paul, who was a Jew, he took over the message of Jesus, the entire preachings of Jesus. To This is where the hijacking of Christianity comes in. He
Mm-hmm.
morphed Jesus into the Son of God, and thus turned the historical Jesus into Paul's mythical Christ. He created the concept of mythical
Mm-hmm.
Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what I call in the book the first hijacking
Mm-hmm.
of Christianity.
Can you go into that a little more?
Yes, essentially, uh, uh, the the message after it's being hijacked by Saint Paul, he now became the the message carrier of, instead of Jesus, in lieu of Jesus. And what happened is that much later, a few decades later, the this hijacking of Christianity, the all the four Christian gospels adopted
Mm-hmm.
the message from Saint Paul now. This time, that is Mark, Matthew, John, and Luke
Mm-hmm.
adopted all these teachings, so they became very much influenced by it, and really, and the letters of Saint Paul became really an integral part of the Christian Bible today.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the first hijacking, what I call the first hijacking of Christianity, in that now people following Pauline Christianity rather than Jesus' teachings in those
Mm-hmm.
days.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was followed. This was also led to the second hijacking of Christianity. There was a second step in the hijacking of Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
which occurred in, in 325 AD.
Mm-hmm.
This occurred at the Nicaea Conference, called to order by the East Roman Emperor Constantine, called that the 300 bishops to that conference in Nicaea,
Mm-hmm.
telling define your God for me, because there was so much confusion now and so much mess all around the place about who is God, where is God, and so on. And so the 300 bishops gathered at the Nicaea conference uh, sat there and debated the issue of, was Jesus really of a human or divine origin?
Mm-hmm.
Now, with the prevalence of that second thought, divine origin, the majority then agreed that they have to define the God this way now. And the result of that was that they came up with a concept of a triune Christian God, namely
Mm-hmm.
the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So all this
Mm-hmm.
was invented at this 300 bishops conference.
Mm-hmm.
They sat there, they said, voted on who God is, and so on. So this is what I call the second hijacking of Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, takes me back to the third phase now, Islam. See, God now sees, humans messed up in Judaism. They went to paganism and all that stuff, and then Christianity. Oh, they changed the identity of God, and they came back to see, was Jesus God? Should we worship Jesus? Worship God, and so on. The
Mm-hmm.
divinity of Jesus became a very big issue, and so God then decided to send a third messenger. That was Muhammad, who came
Mm-hmm.
then with Islam, the message of Islam, to bring about the people on course. But again, here again,
Mm-hmm.
didn't take very long until when Muslims and the people who followed Muhammad to to depart from the original teachings, and then they introduced hereditary monarchy, and they established Islamic empires
Mm-hmm.
that became the mode of growth and mode of advance in
Mm-hmm.
Islam. After that, the Umayyad Empire, the Abbasid Empire, the Ottoman Empire, they all took over, and this they presented or represented a state of affairs in the world that is contrary to what I call in the book the 7 operating principles of Islam. I derived those 7 operating principles of Islam directly from the Quran statements and from divine verses defining or outlining democratic and just Islam. This was hijacking of the early Islam, what I call in the book, hijacking early Islam when they created these empires, and they went on to define within the empires a state of the world that's not really following directly or strictly the instructions of God in the Quran. Now, the contemporary Islam, the second hijacking of Islam now, what I call a second hijacking, is being carried out right now by individuals and groups, violence-minded individuals and groups, that with each claiming ownership of Islam. Once you claim ownership of Islam, you're already hijacking it, because Islam is the religion of God, and Judaism was meant to be the religion of God, and Christianity was meant to be the religion of God. There's only one God, one set of instructions. Every time God gives us instructions and directions, we snatch him away and hijack him. So this book here is really about reviewing an unprecedented review of 3,000 years of history of the religion of God. And it shows that the religion of God has been hijacked right from the beginning till this day, what we are at here right now.
And you mentioned that you believe that it's a lucrative business. Explain that.
Lucrative business, yes, that's a good one, because what happens is that human nature is such that they want to always exploit religion to bring about or to gain from it benefits, enormous benefits of financial power and influence in the world here. And so the human beings by nature, there will always come in people who want to exploit religion for material gains. If you just review the history of all those events where humans were going after religion to exploit it, the medieval crusades sent from Europe during the Age of Kings, with the same crusades to the Middle East to capture the Holy Land and rule it and govern it. This was all for material gains, really, because they wanted to control the trade routes between East and West and all that.
Wow.
So it's always material gains, it was. And it's inadvertently the same role, the same driving motives of people to hijack the religion is after always power, enormous wealth, and even glory. They were always after that. But in the sight of God, all these factors translate into greed and infamy. Shame, greed, and infamy, because God is disappointed with all this, and that's not the message of God to us. So we really need to go back to basics and take a look, a hard look at, do we have one God? Do we believe in one God? And do we want to achieve material gains by exploiting religion and exploiting people? Or do we really have a faith in God as pristine, as pure as it was meant to be?
Right, right. Well, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back. And we're going to talk more about the final analysis of all 3 of the books. I'd like for you to share that and more information about how this all came about. We'll be right back.
Hey travelers, everybody wants cheap airfares, but where can you find them? You call Smart Fares. Our prices are direct from the airlines and they're so low they're not published anywhere. Smart Fares specializes in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rentals, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, Smart Fares can help you get there cheaply and with the best price guarantee. If you want the absolute lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call us right now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these low rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the lowest rates available, so don't wait. Call Smart Fares right now for the best price guaranteed. Save up to 50% off business and first class. We've got great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 800-477-0945. That's 800-477-0945. 800-477-0945.
Sammy, I think you've done an outstanding job in putting this all together. And if we would combine all three of these books together, what would be your final analysis of the books?
The final analysis is that we really need to go back to the very basic concept that we only have one God,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes it a and God has only one set of instructions, one message, which is
Mm-hmm.
one book, and that means that we really should be one people instead of being at each other's throats like we are right now.
Absolutely. Yes.
Jews killing Muslims, Christians killing Muslims killing Christians,
Yes.
and so on, and all this turmoil that is really devouring the entire
Mm-hmm.
fabric of humanity.
Yes.
Uh, we really need to go back to the basic set of instructions of God and really ask Him forgiveness that we have messed up for 3,000 years now, and we really
Wow.
want to go back.
Yes.
We want to go back to to forget our strive for material gains and exploiting God's instructions
Mm-hmm.
to achieve worldly gains, worldly aspects of that's what's driving us against each other. And
Yes.
that is the main message. That's the thrust of the message.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I keep telling in the book, that if we forgot the instructions of God and messed them up, remember, with every day break, there is a new beginning with God.
Yes.
It's not
Yes.
the end of it.
New mercies await us every day. New mercies await us every day. You've done a great job today of putting everything out on the table for our viewers to listen to, and definitely to come to your conclusions about this. You definitely need to get the 3 volumes of this book and add it to your library. I believe it would be very informational for you and would really enlighten you in many ways. So definitely, we encourage you to get a copy of the book. We got a couple of more minutes remaining, and I want you to share your passion, because to be able to, and you said it took you 20 years to write all 3 volumes, to get all the information and put this book together. Um, Somehow I just believe that if it took you 20 years, it had to start even prior to the 20 years. What was your passion? It sounds like to me this was really an assignment from God for you to put all this together for people to read and be educated about many things. Tell me, how did this passion really begin before you began to formulate the book?
Well, I go back to remind you that in my family, I married a Christian woman.
Mm-hmm.
And she is still Christian, and every time I only tell her the only difference between Christianity and Islam is that if you believe Jesus is the Son of God or not the Son of God,
Yes.
that's a key point.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 2 children in our family, and during their upbringing, I wanted to know that I must create for them the environment that where they have the choice. They can get the truth about religion,
Mm-hmm.
Christianity, and Islam, and and find themselves. As I told my
Mm-hmm.
daughter all the time, you have to decide when you grow up which persuasion of religion you want to do and who is God. And
Mm-hmm.
this is why I decided to go back and work on studying religion. And by the way, when my children were playing soccer on the soccer fields, I would be sitting there on the sideline of the soccer field,
Mm-hmm.
all these religious books, and trying to sift through them and get in the truth for myself too. In a way, I wanted to actually know absolutely beyond any shadow of a doubt, is God really of Islam is the same as God of Christianity, the
Mm-hmm.
Christians and the Jews. And this is why I went through reviewing 75 books from cover to cover.
Mm-hmm.
Most of those books were really written by authors like Burton Mack, and others who wrote about early Christianity,
Mhm.
and professors taught theology in colleges. So
Mhm.
I was extracting from those people the essence of their thoughts and ideas and research that went
Mhm.
years and years and years, decades. So the book combines the benefits of those authors who wrote about, like Friedman at the University of San Diego, who wrote about religion, Judaism, and how Judaism developed. This is how I got this idea,
Mhm.
this enlightenment and education on Judaism
Mhm.
from the professors of Judaism like Friedman at the University of San Diego, or Burton Mack here in Los Angeles, teaching about early Christianity. And then I read also, of course, I'm brought up in Islam, so I had also all sorts of books about that, and 6 volume books by Sayyid Qutb, who wrote
Mhm.
about Islam in Egyptian jails under Gamal Abdel Nasser. So all these real deep authorities on the 3 religions were in my hands. Right, I'd sitting at the
Mhm.
sideline of the soccer fields while my children were growing
Mhm.
up and playing soccer. I was right preparing myself to get them the right message, so that when I die, I'm right now in my 70s, and I'm not going to be around much longer. So they have to have the right message
How many
in their
children do you
heart.
have?
Pardon me?
Mhm. How many children do you have?
Two,
Okay, and,
a man
are
and
they
a
split
boy who's a
between
man now.
religions? Are they split between it one Christian, the other Muslim? Tell me a little bit about that.
I did not influence them in a way to say, hey, you have to be this way, or you have to be
Mhm.
that way. I am leaving it to them. I told them, and when you grow up, you're going to have to decide for yourself what
Mhm.
religious persuasion you will
Mhm.
have. And
Yes.
many people would not have that in their families, and some people say, oh, you have to be this or that, and so on. No, in my case here, this is your own personal choice, because someday you're going to be standing before God all alone. Not your
Mhm.
father, not your mother, not anybody is going to be taking your case with God.
Mhm.
So I want my children to decide for themselves and define for themselves
Mhm.
who they believe is God.
So, do you believe that any choice is right?
Any what again?
So, do you believe any choice is any decision that they make will be right?
No, you have to really make an enlightened decision. Let's put it this way.
Mhm.
Understand that we are all one humanity, and we are created. If we're created by one God, by the God, then we really need to pay attention to what that God wants of us and His instructions.
I
And
totally agree
now,
with you on that. Yes.
yeah, when you go back then and say, well, which instructions should I follow? And you're gonna have to find so many sources of instruction directing you to this direction, that direction, this direction. You can't really go to spending 20 years just sifting through books like I did then.
Mhm.
Not everybody has that luxury. I was an engineer. I was supported by my engineering job, and I was providing for the family. So I wasn't really in this dire need of having to. I mean, had more time on my hand to do studying and researching at home. I wasn't. I was working for aerospace company, but I was not using any of my research time on the company time. I had to do it at my own home on
Mhm.
weekends and
Mhm.
so on. So everybody has to research for themselves, or
Mhm.
to ask themselves the question,
Yes.
what religion should I have?
Mhm. In the beginning, hijacking of the religion of God. Well, I tell you what, you've done a great job on this show today explaining this to us on this book. And I'm sure there's a whole lot to learn in all 3 of these volumes. And I just think that every religious leader, people that want to know who God is, more about God, and just wanting to learn some foundational things, I think everyone needs a copy of all 3 of these books, and we encourage you to get a copy of the book today. The information is right here on the screen. Once again, Sammy, I thank you so much for coming on the show. Your books are amazing, and keep doing what you're doing to enlighten the people. We'll see you next time on Books of the Month Show.
Thank you very much for having me on. This is really a privilege and an honor to be on your show. And I hope that people will really get the message right. That even though the title of the book is showing that we have already come up with a disappointment here for God, but really remember, with every day break, there is a new beginning with God. We can start over again every morning with God.
Yes. With every day break, there is a new beginning of God. That's a great way to close it. See you next time.
A couple of things that came up in a discussion on Facebook about reading and becoming a better reader. And so as we kind of went through this thread online, we were sharing some tips and ideas about how to improve our reading comprehension. And so number one is from Benjamin Franklin himself, and what he said was never read a book without a pen in your hand. Number two is read a whole paragraph or a whole section before you go to highlight or underline something. Another thing is I read out loud. And if you read out loud, you will read more slowly than if you read silently. But there are times where by reading out loud, by reading with inflection, you're able to have more senses engaged in what you're reading. So you're not just seeing it, but you're also hearing what you're reading. And that simply helps with reading comprehension as well.